What is up, beautiful people? This is Skorch the Fears, episode 131. We have Dawson on this time. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. The last name is just not going to happen. You can
All
say
good.
it if you want, but I know how to pronounce Dawson. So, yeah, man. Thank you for coming on, and glad to have you here.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity. I've seen a lot of your stuff coming up, so I'm excited.
I love it. So, real quick, give like a quick just real estate resume, like what you've done, what you do, all that good stuff, and yeah, we'll just start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of my story, to bring it back to way in the beginning of the entrepreneur stage, I started out couch flipping, right? I know a lot of people have heard about it, some haven't. I was about 18 years old, started couch flipping, had some success, and was like, where's a way where I can maybe do this on a higher scale? Came across wholesaling real estate as essentially the same idea of just finding something that was either distressed or below market, and able to sell it to an investor or flip it yourself or whatever the case may be. So when I was 19, I was in college, playing baseball at a small NAI school in Sioux City, Iowa. And essentially, I picked up on wholesaling, started cold calling out of my dorm room, and now here we are. We have 9 flips going on right now. We've done over 60 deals this year just in our local market alone. And we're probably going to do a top line of 700K in revenue this year. So it's been a long journey in the making, but I'm sure we'll get into it today. So
Nice. I love it. I
yeah,
mean, that's a really
yeah.
cool story. How old are you now?
I'm 21.
Yeah, I was about to say you still look young as hell. I mean, I'm pretty young, but like
Yeah.
you look. I was like, you still like. I was about to say, it's like, are you still in the dorm room? Like, I don't even know. Like
Yeah, I still sitting on the futon making cold calls. No, I've
yeah,
upgraded. I've upgraded since then. But
no, of course, but like I was just saying, like in terms of like how young you are, that's like fucking awesome, right?
yeah,
Um, how does it feel being so successful so young? Like that, like I can't
yeah,
even imagine. Like I have friends like you, where I'm like,
yeah,
dude, when I was 21, like where my head was at was literally just trying to fuck girls. That was all. Like get through
right.
college and have sex with women. So like how did you get out of that? And yeah,
Yeah.
like how did you get out of like what most of your probably peers are doing?
Gosh, it's pretty crazy you mentioned that too, because a lot of people tell me the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, at 21, you're so young. You could fail, and go broke 3 times over, and you'll still be fine, which is great to hear. But yeah, getting out of that was, I guess, I've always been kind of not the most outgoing guy ever. Especially when I was younger, I was never the guy that was out partying every weekend. I was never the guy. I was really focused on my stuff, at a really young age. So I was never that guy, to start with. I mean, I had a lot of friends, but I was very focused on my stuff. I mean, playing baseball growing up, that was something that I took very seriously and I worked very hard at, a lot more than I would like to think of the teammates that I had. And so I had that work ethic, and I didn't really care about FOMO. I didn't really give a fuck about fear missing out on parties and stuff like that. So I've always kind of had that in the beginning. But when you get to this age, and all of your friends are hitting you up and like, damn, like that's crazy. I didn't even know you were doing this. Because I kept it kind of hush hush. So it was one of those things that it made it a lot easier when I didn't tell anybody about it until I became successful.
Right. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? I mean, all your friends are probably broke college students. They probably have
Yeah.
literally no idea you're in world whatsoever. I mean, I
Yeah.
still had to deal with it. I started when I was 25, and I
Right.
still dealt with it and still kind of deal with it, where everyone's goddamn in their mid 30s to mid 40s, right?
Right.
And like all of
Right.
you have kids and are married. So like, how do you deal with like the fact that your age group or like people your age probably just aren't at your level at all?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm very understanding as far when I have a conversation with good friends of mine that are my age that are still in college. I have a lot of my best friends are still in college. And they're living in that dorm room exactly what I was doing years ago, right? And so years ago, I mean 3 years ago, but or 2 years ago, but dealing with that is more so like I'm not one guy who's gonna sit there and talk about business. When I'm with the type of audience that I'm with, I tend to adapt to that, right? Which can be dangerous sometimes and it can be good sometimes. So you got to pick and choose who you hang out with, especially, because you have those friends that you hang out with and grab a beer on Fridays, or you have those friends like your business friends that you go to for advice and things like that. So it's more so just knowing who your audience is.
I love it. So like how'd you find out about real estate? Let's get into that. Like how did you find out? Like how old were you when you found out? Like 18, 19?
Yeah, I was about 18. I think You see all this stuff on social media, and which is great. It's awesome. I mean, we're grateful to be in a time where we can find out about things on social media that we otherwise wouldn't have. But so I found out about real estate when I was 18, just through social media, finding out, oh, if you get a house under contract, you can assign that contract and make 10 grand for no money down, or you don't even have to buy the house. I was like, that doesn't sound right. It sounds kind of scammy or whatever, but it
Sure.
seems like something's off here. But once you do your first deal, it's you really realize that. But yeah, and then I did the couch flipping before and then that kind of propelled me into the journey of understanding. Oh, so I don't have to get a job to make money. Okay, so we got that established. Um, and then once I did that, because I was essentially flipping couches, buying and reselling couches, and I was like, oh, I can do this to houses to make a lot more money. Even with wholesaling, you don't even need money. So that's kind of how I just you get down the rabbit hole as you dip your toes in.
I love it. That's
Hmm.
amazing. So,
Yeah,
okay, you find out from a TikTok, it sounds like, or something like that, like
yeah,
about wholesaling real estate,
yeah.
and then you're 18. So what do? Like you see a TikTok, and then what?
Yeah, so kind of what I did was I was making money couch flipping already. So I had some money that I had saved up for marketing and things like that. So my first initial idea was I'm going to reach out to another wholesaler in my local market where we still do deals today, um, that can help me out with this. And maybe if I bring him some value, maybe he'd help me out, right? And so pretty much he very grateful for that. But he pretty much dipped my toes in. I'm like, okay, this is kind of what the concept is. It's pretty basic. Just the only value you can bring is by finding a deal that is below market value, so that you can sell it to another investor who's willing to buy it and make a profit on that as well. So I was like, okay, so the only value I can find um, is by just getting a deal, right? And so then I had some money stacked up, and then you have to find your way of getting a deal. And my way happened to be cold calling, right? And I know a lot of people have different ways. But my deal was cold calling right away, just because when you're in the beginning, you have the ability to get lucky. You have the ability to catch somebody at the right time, because there's always going to be somebody that outspends you, always somebody who has the 50-person team behind them cold calling the same area. But you can always get lucky, and you can always find an opportunity, especially when you're a small fish. So that's kind of was my first steps initially, just because of the cost of how cheap it was to cold call, and just the odds of getting a deal were just a little bit better, because I didn't want to
So
spend so much money.
where did you do it? Where are you?
I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so that's where we do all of our deals. Is in Sioux
Interesting.
Falls, South Dakota. So it's a 250,000
So what is
person
that market
metro
like?
market.
Because that's interesting. Because it's small, but
Yeah,
probably less competition too. What do
yeah.
you
I
think?
mean,
Is it liberal?
there is plenty of competition. As
Okay.
surprising as it seems, just because in South Dakota there's pretty much two cities that are actually big in the state. So that we're on the east side of the state, and so it's the biggest city around here. But there's quite a few people who do the same thing we do. Um, but it's a very interesting market because the ARVs are, your average 3 bedroom, two bath house is going to be in that 250 to 300 range. Um, so it's nice on that aspect. It's pretty average throughout the rest of America. But what's so cool is that it's such a city that's almost so niche that um, it's very hard to understand, as far as how to price something out, how to do this, just because of how local it is and how much smaller it is. It's kind of hard to explain on that aspect, but it's a market that appreciates massively. And there's a large appreciation rates here, just because of how many cities are this big in South Dakota. So like this is the place where all the small town people grow up and they come here, right? So there's just it's kind of an influx, if you will.
Sure. Are you from a
Hmm.
small town, or did you grow up in Sioux
I'm
Falls?
actually I'm actually from around here. Yep. So I grew up in
Okay.
a suburb just around here. Hmm.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So awesome. You start cold calling. Talk to us about your first deal. How did
Yeah,
that
so my
go?
first deal, I was in my dorm room at the time, and I was sitting on a futon, and I had the TV on as a podcast, right? And I was watching a podcast while I was cold calling, because I this time I discovered what automatic dialers were. So I had that, and I was dialing pretty much at this point. I was dialing as much as I could, with sports and all that stuff going on. So I was dialing on average 1 to 3 hours a day in school, and this particular day I had around 3 hours, right? And so I was 3 hours into this, and I kid you not, this is a real story. In the dialer, you can put like, oh, this is my last call, right? So I put it as my last call. I'm like, okay, I'll be done for the day. And the lady picks up and she's like, yeah, I'm actually looking to sell. I need to get this done pretty quick. I'd take, 120, maybe 110. Ended up locking her up at 100. And I called up, and I'm, an hour and a half south of here at the time in my dorm room. So I was like, hey, I call up that guy and I was like, hey, I might have a deal here. I don't really know, but looking back, it's kind of funny. But I was like, I might have a deal here. You want to go to this house and just kind of lock this
What
lady up?
was, just curious, what was ARV?
ARV was probably, so it's a 3 bet. It's probably like in the 225 range. So
It's a
it
pretty
was,
damn
and
good deal. It's like
yeah,
40%.
it was a smoking deal. Yeah, it was a
Yeah, that's a
smoking
good.
deal.
What you,
Um,
wait, I'm like, how much did you make off it? Like 20, 30?
yep, it was a 20K wholesale, but I ended up splitting with the
Nice.
guy. So it was just for JB.
Oh,
So I had
well.
10 grand, being nine,
Hey,
which
fuck
is,
it.
oh,
Who
you have to. I
cares?
mean, yeah,
What, that
at that
first
point,
one?
it's like, because for me, I had no idea how to even fucking analyze a deal. So it's like, you don't even know what anything is worth. I didn't even know if 110 or 100 was a deal. I had no idea. And so, like, for me, the fact that I even got paid was a plus. But
So talk about that moment, because
yeah.
I think that's a really special moment when you receive that first check. I nearly
Oh
made as
yeah.
much as you on my first deal. I think I made like $9,000,
Yeah.
$9,900 technically,
Hmm.
because I put $100. I think I tipped it off $100 or something like that.
Yeah.
But talk about that first check. Like, what did it feel like when you were like, holy shit, this is $10,000. I'm 18.
Yeah, it was crazy because I mean, it's a feeling where you work at something for 3 to 6 months. It almost becomes like you almost feel like it's so far away. It almost feels like such a distant thing to achieve. And then when you actually get it, and you dedicate 3 to 6 months to even a year of something that seems like almost a fairy tale, is unbelievable. It's the greatest moment in my career so far. Is that right there? And the second moment was actually selling my first couch for a profit. So that was like those first moments when you realize this is real, like this works. You can't even describe it. Greatest moments of my life.
I love it. So you do
Hmm.
it, and then you're like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, what happens? How does the business develop from there?
So I did the first one, and then I was like, okay, so this cold calling stuff somewhat works. So then I just was like, let's keep cold calling. Let's just cold call all day, every day. And so, definitely lacked on the homework after that. But, it spent a ton of time cold calling after that, just on the phones, on a dialer. And I just kept hitting the dialer all day, every day, and was slowly getting some deals every so often. I ended up getting one more deal after that. It was like a 5K deal, wasn't anything
Mm.
impressive. Got a deal a month after that, and it kind of built some momentum, right? So then, fast forward to I think it was like 6 to 8 months later, I was still dialing all the time, and I decided to hire some VAs. So then that's when I just hired some VAs that are still with me today, to cold call for me in our local neighborhood. So I have two of them now that just cold call, and then that delegated my time away because I still ended up cold calling for probably another 3 to 4 months after that with the VAs. Surprisingly enough, and then I was done with cold calling. That's when I got the time to explore other marketing channels, right?
So like what did you start doing after that? What did you start
Yeah,
doing
so
after?
yep. So the first thing that I ended up doing after that was organic SEO. That was the first marketing channel that I chose after that, just due to obviously how cheap it is and how effective I felt that it would have been. And it's easily our biggest marketing source today is organic SEO. I know it's kind of unpopular opinion from a lot of people, but easily our biggest source today was from me just learning how to do it, and getting our website at the top. So then I explored that, got that ranked, and then at that point,
So
it
how
was
do you do that? How do you get your website at the top
yeah,
um, of your market? Like because obviously like that's how I remember it, because that's not a channel I ever used, was you
right.
had to like put in a ton of time, wait like a year, like do a lot of different things. How does one get their website more popular than anyone else's?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, what happens with organic SEO is Google just sees two things, right? When you look up sell my house fast in whatever area you're in, they're going to pull up at the top the most relevant and credible websites you have, or is targeting that specific keyword, right? So sell my house fast, Nebraska, or whatever the case may be. And so with that, by what I mean by relevancy and credibility, they just want the website to be relevant to the keyword, being relevant to what they're talking about, being relevant to what the people want. So once you understand what Google actually likes and what they mean by relevancy, it's a game changer, because then you can see, okay, this is how I can be relevant. And it doesn't cost really that much to become that. It's just a matter of strategy. And so then once you become relevant, then you gain credibility, by just that's where you talk about the time that's going into it. I mean, it depends
What do you
on
do?
every
Like,
market.
how do you become? How do you? What are like the specific actions you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'm going to do when I go, because I do websites for real estate investors across the country today now. But first thing I do when I go in a website is I check the competition and I look up Sell My House Fast, Indianapolis or whatever it is. You see at the top three who's ranking, right? And there's free Chrome extensions that you can have called SEO Quake, SEO Marketing Syrup. There's a lot of different free Chrome extensions that you can use to pull all of the data from the website, right? And what happens there is you can pull how many words they have on the page, what type, how many times they use a certain word, how many headings they use for this type, and you can see their keyword density, what type of headings they use, what type of images. It basically pulls all the information of what is on their website specifically. And what you do is then you go to the top three competitors in that area, and you basically develop an average, or you develop a blueprint, because each keyword is different, right? So if I was to look up "sell my house fast" Sioux Falls, or look up "sell my house fast," Indianapolis, it's going to be a much different way to rank those pages. And so you have to find an average of all of your competitions on certain keywords. So if they, for example, in the website, if they use the word house, in their website 27 times, and it's 1.8% of their keyword density, meaning 1.8% of their content is using the word house. And that's your average out of all the three competitors. So your top three people on average are using it in their website 27 times at 1.8% of the time, right? You want to almost use it, 30 times at a 2% rate, right? So it's just a matter of taking your competition, seeing what is on their page, by developing a blueprint of exactly what their keyword density is, how many times they're using certain keywords, how they're displaying their headings, how they're displaying their images, everything like that. And basically matching that, but getting a little bit better, because you in Google and SEO, you don't want to get too big. You don't want to be having 200 words of house in there, but you also don't want five, right? You want to fit with the pack, but you want to be the leader of the pack, if that makes sense. So SEO can get very complicated, but once you understand the entire concept of it's analyzing your competition, seeing what they're doing well that's working, and essentially match that. And then where the time comes in is building that credibility so that Google trusts you, is essentially what it
So
is.
then you said you do this for other investors now?
Yep. So I do this for other real estate investors across the country, on top of, because I know with our business right now, I have a lot of time on my hands because a lot of it is delegated at this point. I have a business partner who does a lot of the day to day. We also have another guy that does a lot of, just the lead management and stuff like that. So essentially, for me to grow, because for me, I had two options, right? I could try to do this in another market, try to wholesale in another market, or I was like, okay, well, I'm good at SEO, and some other investors in our network kind of were like, hey, that website you have, what if I paid you to do the same thing? And I was like, well, I've never thought about it, but I'll do it. Did it, and I was
Smart.
like, I don't mind doing this. So it's a matter of, I kind of want to scale on that factor of things. I
I think it's a
realized that it's
smarter
just
one to scale, to be honest. Way too many wholesale businesses.
exactly.
I think it would be way smarter to just have your wholesale business in your market. So I don't know. Are you starting to buy some of these houses? Or you're wholesaling all of them?
I would say we buy about 1 in every 10. So we buy all the home runs. So we have
It's not a
9
bad
flips going on right
ratio.
now.
Not a
Yeah.
bad
So
ratio.
we have about
Um,
9 flips going on right now, and then we've done probably close to 50
my
something
advice:
wholesales this year.
keep it at about that ratio. Keep
Yeah.
like 1 out of 10 at least. Just keep the wholesaling business just to grow your wholesale, like to give you money, obviously too, but also
Right.
especially for increasing the buy and hold portfolio, and then scale the hell out of that SEO stuff. I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like that would, if you can actually be the guy who gets people's websites and gets them leads
Yeah.
that close, you can make so much goddamn money. My
Oh
personal
yeah.
opinion is you're doing exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah,
Um,
and because I've analyzed both sides, because I had the two choices. I'm like, gosh, I don't want to be, because I've tried to do the nationwide wholesaling thing, and it's hard. It's hard because for us, we literally have probably a handful of flippers that we don't even have a buyers list anymore at this point. We have literally a handful of guys that we call because we're like, I know so and so is going to want this, right? So at this price, like we just know, and so it's super easy once you get a deal in this type of market because you know exactly what everything is going for. You know it like the back of your hand. So for us to duplicate that would have been so difficult. And so
it's just
this
so
is a
much work.
skill.
It's just
Yeah,
so not worth it. Max 2 markets if you want, but yeah, I
right.
100% agree.
Yeah.
So awesome. So what do we got going? We got flipping going now. We have a
hmm
partner. How'd you learn? How'd you get into flipping? Was it just cause, or like, did you want to expand there, or do you have a partner that knows about construction and stuff, or what happened there?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it was more so just seeing opportunities of you see home runs out there and where you can get a 25K wholesale fee or you can flip it and make 60, right? And I think we're very particular on which ones we choose because I know like my business partner was more experienced in flipping before I met him. So I had no experience in flipping, but he did. So it's something that obviously helped quite a bit. He had a couple flips under his belt. So it's one of those things where we would pull the home runs that would need very little. We wouldn't do we still to this day don't do heavy construction. It's very cosmetic stuff. Um, and so with that being said, it's like we could turnaround time was like a week. And so for us, once we developed to have that private money, that was like, okay, we have money now. So might as well capitalize on this.
Love it. Awesome. So what are your
Yeah.
goals right now? Increase. What do you have? What do you want the wholesaling to be? Is it exactly where you want it to be? What do you want to grow? Do you mainly want to grow the SEO thing? Like what? Where are you going? What do you want to be doing?
Yeah, so the wholesaling and flipping business is going to naturally probably grow on itself. Because right now we're obviously our funnels are working very well. Our marketing spend is staying very conservative, but we're getting a lot more deals just due to being smarter. So we're getting a lot more deals, a lot of more private money's coming in. So I think it's going to grow naturally just the way it is right now. If we just keep doing what we're doing, I would like to get it up to 1 million a year in top line revenue. We're pretty close. We're at 700K. So it's going to take a lot more flipping, I think, in my mind, to especially in a local market where there's only so much you can get. It's going to take a lot more flipping to do those numbers, but I think it's definitely possible, especially with having a lot more private money, having a lot more access to funds. But on the other hand of that, with that stuff going on in the background, my personal goal with our company too is just to grow the SEO side of things. I think there's something to be said about me understanding the business of being a wholesaler, flipper, and real estate, and understanding what in this specific industry is going to get you ranked at the top for sell your house fast or any other high motivating keywords. So that is what we're looking to scale heavily right now, just because the real estate stuff is naturally kind of on the up and up. If it makes any sense.
Nice. So when you were
Yeah.
doing this, are you fully self-taught? Did you have any mentors whatsoever? Join any programs, masterminds, anything?
No, I was completely self-taught just because I was very conservative in the beginning. In the beginning, I ran into a problem where I was like, I'm spending way too much money on stuff that isn't working. So for me, I was like, I was burning through funds really fast. And
Like
I'm
what
like,
type
well,
of things?
oh, just you go through like PPL and you like pay per lead, you do
Oh yeah,
mailers. I was
PPC
spending
and
a lot
yeah.
on inbound leads because I was like, once I got those first, few deals, I'm like, oh, let's just bury all this money back into investing in the business, right? And I realized that it takes a lot more money than 10 grand to get an inbound lead on some forms of on some occasions, right? You can get lucky sometimes, but it's very expensive. And so I was like, well, what is the cheapest way I can get an inbound lead? Because I'm sick of, I wasn't sick of it because the VAs were doing the outbound stuff, but I'm like, I would like somebody to call me one of this other house. And so for me, SEO was like, okay, I can get, I like to use Carrot. I'm not endorsed by them or anything like that. I just think they're the highest quality out there. To have Carrot, it's like 89 bucks a month. You can literally get a website, get this thing ranked. And if it's ranked, I was like, there's got to be people who are looking this stuff up, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this. For the next 6 months, I literally spent just hours and hours and hours all day, every day on SEO. literally is what I did. And I was like, this is definitely going to pay off now, which it has now because we're doing probably over 200,000, close to a quarter million in top line revenue from the website alone that we pay less than
Love it.
$100 a month for. And so looking back on that, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, was it the hardest route? Of course it was. It was hard to learn how to do it. But at that point in time, I had more time than money. You know what I'm saying? It's like I tell a lot of
Right.
my clients too who are interested in SEO services. I'm like, they're like, well, I could do it myself. I'm like, trust me, I'm going to be the first one to tell you that's what I did. But here's the deal: if you have more money than time right now, I highly suggest finding whether that's me or somebody else to do it for you because
That's
SEO is going
the
to take a
that's the
lot of time for you to learn.
all you need to do in business, in my opinion, is get really good at one thing and then pay enough where you can make a freak ton of money from that one thing, and then
Yeah,
pay everyone else to do literally everything else. So like,
exactly.
dude, you're my SEO guy now. Like, if I ever need SEO,
I
like,
love it.
I don't know how much you know about me. I mainly do deals through real estate agents. I just
Yep,
made
I was
that my
familiar with that.
niche.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I don't know how an SEO website would help there. That would be like a really interesting thing to think about how that would even work because I run such an untraditional business. I
Right.
don't mind talking to sellers. I just don't like it as much as I like talking to agents at this point,
Of
just because
course.
like talking to agents is like the back of my hand. I talk to
More
sellers probably like
professionalism.
once a
Yeah.
month.
Mhm.
It's more just it's also like it's a business to business versus business to consumer type of
Exactly.
business
Yep.
model, and I like
Mhm.
businesses. It's just
I love
easier. We're
that.
just talking numbers and whatever. So
I
I
love that.
love it, man. So what are your goals? Like, where do you want this SEO company to be? What do you want to do? You want to get the wholesaling to at least 1 million, and then
Mhm.
SEO to what? What do you want to get that to?
So I probably have a couple handfuls of clients now. So I'm close. So I'm around 10 clients now across the nation. I mean, Arkansas, Connecticut, Oklahoma City, Florida, a couple others, Texas, a few others. So it's awesome in that aspect. But I think right now is just more. It's a very long term business. I think in wholesaling and flipping, you can make money very very fast. But I think the benefit of having an SEO agency is more of a long term play, right? I'm taking a short term pay cut to do more of a long term service that is going to be something that could possibly be a sellable company, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now. Is kind of the goal with that is to develop it to something where I don't have to be as involved in it anymore. Because, as being a sellable company, you have to find a way for the company to make money without you being the
Yeah,
main guy, right? And so that is kind of my goal with the SEO stuff is really just to build it out because I know with SEO, there's opportunity, just like there is real estate. Everybody can eat at the table, right? You can get a client anywhere, no matter how many SEO agencies there are. Everybody can get a client somewhere, right? As long as you show that you're good enough, right?
I love it. So
hmm
what are your biggest challenges right now? Whether with SEO, whether with wholesaling, whether with flipping, like what are you working on? Where do you like, damn, this is annoying the hell out of me?
Yeah, one first thing that comes to mind right now is delegating labor. That is for me right now. That is the most difficult thing that I am
What's your
slowly
process
learning
for
my
doing
lesson with. Yeah, so honestly, right now, it's something where I am trying to build a team behind me that I know because right now, obviously, with I'm trying to build my social media, trying to build, connections with people such as yourself, Jonah, and also people behind me who I can have as trusted people who I know. Okay, I need you to do this for this client. I need you to fix this website. I need you to set this website up and do this and this and this, and I can trust them to do it. And I'm finding out in SEO that it's a complicated enough game that it's very hard to find that. It's very easy to find a social media manager, very easy to find that. So obviously that's the first thing that I'm delegating right now. Um, but in this game, it's like I almost want to make sure that, for example, like if it was a roofing company, I
So
don't
is
want to
it finding
hire.
talent? Is it finding
It's
talent
more.
or is it actually delegating the task?
Um, it's I think it's more so finding talent. It's finding talent that they're able to live up to the standards. I don't really have a ton of high standards. I understand that people aren't going to understand right away when they get into it. I'm willing to train, but it's more so just, yeah, hiring talent and making sure that they're able to perform at the level that our results are relied upon, right? Because we want to, I mean, if you want a sandwich shop, you want a good fucking sandwich. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for me, it's like I need to make sure we still are having a good
Do
sandwich. And
you
so,
do you have SOPs? Do you use like have you ever heard of Trainual?
no. Mm-mm.
That's what you're missing. I had a feeling it would be this. Look up
Mm-hmm.
Trainual after this podcast.
How do you spell that?
Train and then Ewell. So like mix manual and train, those two words together.
Okay. Awesome.
You should look up that website. I think you just need to make SOPs. So do you have like, do you know what SOPs are?
No, honestly. I don't. I'm very new. So.
Especially if you do some sellable, and this is just like, I thought I dropped this since like I had a feeling, right? Because you're like, you remind me of me like 2 years ago, right?
Right.
Where it's like, fuck, I'm doing everything. How do I teach people how to do everything else?
Right.
You want to have basically a manual, more or less. SOPs are just a bunch of different pages and stuff where somebody could pick up that manual, read it, and recreate your entire business. Basically.
Okay.
Or run your entire business. That's like the goal. Create something where it's like a manual where it's like, okay, someone could pick this up and run my entire business without me based on this manual.
Right.
That is the next thing you need to do. And I hate making those. So trust me, like you're also visionary. I hate that stuff too. It makes the difference. It's going to make the world of difference. Trainual, and then do you know what Loom is? You ever heard of that one?
Yeah, I have Loom, and actually, what's funny to think is I've actually made videos of myself doing exactly what I would do for my own clients. So it's funny, I was making practically an SOP without even me really knowing what the hell that was. So
you probably are. Cool. I mean, it's just like you literally just everything you do, just record it and then put it into a manual. Yeah, what I would do if I were you, here's the non-painful way of doing it. Just record everything you're doing it as you're doing it, and then hire. Have you read Rocket Fuel? You know that book?
No.
Read that book. You're a visionary. Okay. This is like the terminology you need to learn. You're a visionary and you need an integrator. You probably have an integrator partner in your flipping and in other parts of your business. Yeah. But and maybe they'll be the ones who create the training rule. This will make the difference with delegating. You're gonna be like, oh my God, thank you. If you do it right.
I love it. No, and that's it. And I'm glad you asked like what my biggest problem is, because that was like easily, there's no questions asked. That's my biggest problem right now, is because you realize, when you're in this business, and you get there long enough, you're there, you get to a high enough price point, and then you realize you're like, oh shit, I can't do this by myself. Oh shit, and so that's what you don't plan for when you're in the hustle mode,
Yeah, exactly. And like there's different seasons, right? You're transitioning, it sounds like, from hustle to owner operator, and hopefully soon just operator or just owner. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
That's the goal. And yeah, man, no, it'll be fun. I want to hear about it as you like do that part.
Oh, absolutely.
Stop starting new businesses though. Figure this out for all of your businesses before you start any more businesses. Otherwise you'll start going crazy.
Yeah, that was I had no plan of starting any. I'm fully committed to this SEO stuff behind obviously the wholesaling and flipping process we have going now. So there's nothing shiny object out there that's going to catch my attention at this moment. So
no worries. Okay, cool. So have you joined any masterminds since? I feel like you're ready to do stuff like that. Have you ever joined a mastermind before?
No, honestly, as far as like we have local, so I have a thing that we call the men's group here. It's a mastermind. Honestly, I don't pay to be in it, but it's a mastermind that meets every first Wednesday of the month, and it's essentially very high level people that we meet and talk about in all different industries. Talk about what is working for this stuff in business and in life, right? So it's that's the one that I will say that I'm in. As a mastermind, it's more of like a men's group type thing. So
you will want to eventually, I'd highly recommend looking up some good ones. If you want some recommendations, I can give you some. It'll be really good at some point, because like I think you're at that step where you could use just like the guys who are doing the 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, right? To just hear like, okay, what is the difference between them and me right now, right? It'd be a good idea. I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah,
but anyways,
no, I agree.
So I'm also curious, because I remember how this podcast happened. You were like, hey man, like, I think you said something like, I saw you on Steve Trang because you went on Steve Trang, I think. Yeah. Something like that. And then you were like, hey, I want to come on the podcast. How did you find me from Steve Trang? Was I right about that? I'm like,
yep. So I went through a lot of Steve Trangs. I've been watching Steve Trang for a long time. And it's more so just me also wanting to connect with very high level people. And anybody who's on Steve's podcast, I'd like to hope so, has got half decent of a brain. So
Love it.
so it's one of those things. So yeah, it's more of me just reaching out, connecting, and also building my brand, because that's something that is huge for me too. Right now is building the social media aspect of things, which
I
is
love
at
it.
the
So talk
very
about that.
beginning stage.
Why are you trying to build your brand? For what purpose? And then start with that. Talk about the importance of social media, because a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, because for me, I recently just had this epiphany. So, social media for me, 6 months, even 4 months ago, was something that I was like, so stupid. Like, I don't get why. Like, what is it? I'm just gonna look dumb. Like, what is the point of me going on a camera and posting on Instagram about what I'm doing? Like, almost I looked at it as almost like a flex, right? And then I was like, 3 months ago, I'm like, wait a second. So I had a guy that I knew. He was based out of Omaha, Nebraska. He was a realtor, and he was huge on social media. Well, huge. I mean, like 20K followers in that niche of being a
Right.
realtor just in Omaha, right? And I was like, huh, that's cool. And he's like, dude, check this out. And he showed me his DM inbox of people who are like, oh my gosh, I've been looking to buy for so long. Like, I check out this house? It, from 3 days, he was just scrolling, and I'm like, hold on a second. So like for me, I was like, wait, like this actually works. Like this isn't just like people doing the business
Yeah.
theater, like just looking sexy. Like this actually serves a purpose. That was the biggest epiphany for me. I was like, holy shit, like this is crazy. So that's when I started posting on social media. I was like, this is the net. Like I was telling my business partner, I was telling everybody in my network, like this is the thing. If you're not doing this, you need to be doing this. And this is coming from a guy who had no social media following really. So what didn't really shake much, but that was my epiphany. It was like, holy shit. So this actually is it's an asset. It's an asset for having an audience of some kind, because no matter what you're doing, if you're selling paper clips, you could probably have an audience of that, and it would generate some sort of income for almost free, right? Unless you delegate it, obviously some time involved. But that was the epiphany for me. I was like, this is literally an asset it's almost similar to SEO. It's an asset that is super, super cheap to have. It's very long term. You have to be patient. You have to work hard at it. But once you get up there, it's an asset that is like Prince, right? So that was for me. That was the epiphany for me when that experience happened.
I love it. I love it so
Hmm.
much. Good to hear. So tell me, like, what are some of the, like, what I'm really curious about too, because I always find this fascinating,
Hmm.
is like, what did you feel like you always were an entrepreneur? Did you have an entrepreneurial spirit since you were like really, really young? I mean, you are still young, but like,
Hmm.
when did you even learn about entrepreneurship? Did your family teach it to you?
No, no. So I came from I mean my parents I didn't a lot of these people say like, oh, I grew up super poor, and like I wish I had that cool ass story, but I don't. My parents were pretty decently well off, very middle class. I never I went on vacations as a kid and stuff like that, so I didn't have a hard life to start out with that. But my parents were very hardworking. I mean, both of my parents were blue collar people. And so it was one of those things. I grew up with my parents working very, very long hours, from, you know, 14 to 16-hour days at whatever they were doing, right, at the
Hmm.
time. And so I was able to model that work ethic. And so obviously being in sports too, it was something that I got to put that into use, right? I got to put that hard work and really see results once I realized, oh, okay, so if I go to the batting cages, every day, I'm gonna get better, right? And then you have Johnny who's ahead of you, right? Who maybe hit
Right.
better, last season, and then all of a sudden you show up and you're better, and it's like, holy smokes, okay, so this working hard thing actually works if you do it in the right way. There's a difference between working hard and working smart, right? And so kind of that work ethic developed. But then what really changed my life, honestly, and it's crazy because I'm not even I'm a very audiobook guy. I listen to audiobooks. I listen to probably the same 3 books every year. I don't really
What are
change
they?
outside
What
of
are the
that.
three books?
David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. Alex
Good one.
Hormozy, $100 million leads. And then
That's so
also
good.
right, because like everybody listens to that
They're
one.
good books.
And then his also Hormozy's other one, which is $100 million offers, right?
Okay.
So
Hormoz is
that's
a good
like
one.
those are like my three that I literally just cycle through an audiobook. Those pretty much whenever I need to. But then the really like the game changer book that pretty much opened my eyes was when I was looking up when I was in high school because I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Right, I'm probably probably close to a junior. I'm probably a junior in high school at this time, and I pick up Rich Dad Poor Dad, like a lot of us, right? Because originally how I found it was I was like, okay, what's the highest paying jobs, right? I want to have a high paying job, like every junior in high school boy does. And they said, well, finance or economics was the top. And I look up on books. I was like, what's the best book on finance? Somehow I stumble upon Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And I was like, what? This is crazy, right? So then I'm reading this, and it was basically teaching me, like, there's a lot of things in that book that he talks about, but at the small minded I was at the time, I understood. I was like, okay, so you don't have to trade time for money, huh? Like that was an epiphany for me. I was like, so
Right.
the amount of time, the amount of hours I work, I can make more money than just trading, $20 an hour for work. Like that would to me was like mind blowing. I was like, holy smokes! Like I didn't even know this existed. Like this is crazy.
Right.
So once I read that, that was a game changer for me. That pretty much changed everywhere that I looked at life. I never looked at the world the same again after that book, which is crazy to say, but
I love it.
yeah,
So we're getting a little bit. We're starting to get to the end of the podcast.
yeah.
I'm gonna ask you the main question I ask everyone at the end of the podcast, which is, if you could go back to Dawson when you were just starting out, whether maybe with the couch flipping, maybe with the real estate
Mhm.
investing, what would you tell yourself then, knowing everything that you know now?
Oh my gosh, just trust yourself. Just trust yourself in the process. You're gonna see other people doing different things. You're gonna see shiny objects out there that, oh, maybe drop shipping's better than wholesaling. You're gonna see other things out there. Just trust your process, trust yourself. And because that was for me when I was a younger kid, I had bad confidence issues as a kid. And so for me, it was a hard obstacle to be like, you know what, let's commit to this, and you know what, own it, right? And that's for me, like when you talk about agent outreach, that was never a thought for me. Because like for me in the beginning, I was considering myself as a little fish, right? So I treated my marketing and my business as such that I was a little fish, right? And so for me, I think if you go into it and have some balls and just go into it with a lot of confidence, it's going to change the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you act, and how much money you make, without a doubt.
I love it. I love it so much.
Mhm.
Okay, my man. Where can people find your SEO? How can they reach out to you for your SEO services? How can they reach out to you to do a deal? Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if first off, I like to say Sioux Falls is a very niche market. So any nationwide wholesalers or anything like that, I can definitely be your guy if you ever come across anything in Sioux Falls, because it may seem like a doozer of a town, but I promise you, we know it like the back of our hands. So you can Instagram DM me at Dawson DAWSON_SKOR. That's all my forms of channels. I have my YouTube, my TikTok as well, and the same handles there. And then also if you're
Like
looking for
that,
SEO
right?
services, yep. And so if you're looking for SEO services, go to houseflipseo.com. And basically, you can book a call with me, and we can just see if it's something that's a good fit for you. It depends on how your marketing is everything set up. You have to qualify to be a client, just based off of how everything in your business is going. But yeah, see if we're a perfect fit for you, and see if we can be a good partner in your journey to growing your business.
I love it. Cool, my man.
Yeah.
Well, before I start ending this, like, do you have any last words? Anything you
No,
want to
I
last
I
say?
think yeah, I think for anybody who's out there who is looking to who is maybe on the fence about, man, should I drop out of college? Should I go and pursue this? I think it's something
One
that
hundred
if you
percent do it.
yes, I think it's something where it's gonna suck for a long time. Just being honest, I'm not a guy who's gonna sell the vacation without the TSA. You know what I'm saying? And so like it's gonna suck
Yep.
for a little while. And but if you just know there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're a Hormozy, and I know whatever, but he says a lot of this, and I think it's a good quote. This is where most people would stop, right? And if you know your limit and you understand, because once you get in the grind phase, you're going to see, okay, this is where a normal person, with everyday person, would stop. This is getting hard, but if you push past that, you're going to get a benefit somehow, some way. So
I love it. Cool, my man.
yeah,
We'll stay. Don't leave immediately. Some people leave immediately as soon as I do this outro, but Don't quite leave. Stay after the live, just real quick.
All
Guys,
right.
that's episode 131. Next week, I am not doing a podcast. I will be in Chicago for a multifamily mastermind with Vina Jetty. So do not expect one next week. The one after that, I will be back, normal schedule. I appreciate y'all. Dawson, thank you so much again.
Thanks,
Skorch the
guys.
Fears, we're out. Let go.